if we have a bad day and a product goes poorly, someone is going to be injured. The company that we work with, inventor, whoever it is, will hands down be the subject matter expert, but they don't fully encompass all of the tasks that has to happen because it's outside of their expertise.
I'm Bill Schick, Fractional CMO, host of Lifesci Continuum. Today I get a chance to speak with my guest Tim Looney from Northeast Biomedical, where he breaks down planning engineering for med device projects.
What you don't want to do is you don't want to go towards regulatory approval and get there and they'd be like, where's this test? Or did you consider this? Did you consider that? And what we're trying to do is we're trying to get through faster by not forgetting things and making sure we include all of the steps.
Understanding what founders actually need, what DHF is, planning phase reviews, and right-sizing your documentation.
You want to see that you're monitoring the right things. And if you walk in and go, it's all up here, don't worry, I make it the same every time, it's not going to fly.
And really understanding how sometimes it can feel like you're moving a little bit slower than you'd like to, but you're actually moving faster than you would otherwise. Thanks for joining. Let's go. So Tim, thanks for hopping on with me today.
Thanks for having me.
For the listeners who don't know you, give us a little bit of background on you.
Well, that's a long discussion. I don't know if we have enough time for that, but my background mainly comes from, I was trained as a mechanical engineer and I've had kind of an interesting career. I started off being a design engineer, started designing equipment, machinery, robotics, and that type of thing. And then 20 something years ago, I switched into medical device. And because I was always drawn to that, because it's kind of a neat thing, like you're actually making something to help somebody. So I've been working in that field basically ever since then. The company itself was started actually 14 years ago this month. We are a small product development and contract manufacturing company. So we focus on working with other companies that either have an idea or need some help or a design that needs to be fixed or some sort of challenge. And what we do is we put engineers in our systems to work for them as a fee-for-service type of operation. And we also will produce, finished grade devices. So the company's quality system is ISO 13485 certified. So we have to go through some pretty rigorous things with that. And the biggest thing, like we work with a wide variety of different companies. It mostly involves some sort of disposable and some sort of durable good. And that could be electronics, that could be a catheter, they usually pair them together with some sort of sensor. Yes, we've been at it for 14 years with about 25 people here. We're still looking to grow. We're taking on some more space. It's fun because we get to work with a lot of startups that have interesting projects going on. We also balance that off as we work with a lot of bigger companies that just don't have the resources for the time that they need. They're usually under some sort of deadline or some sort of crunch, and we can help them with that. So that should probably cover it.
Looking back on the last few years, what are some notable projects that you've worked on that you would be able to talk about? So
some of our stuff is highly confidential to the customer. We've had some really interesting things, and I'm trying to think of some of the more interesting ones. We've worked with one company with a technology that is it's a feedback loop for depth cutting. So the first product that they put out was for toenail drilling. Mm-hmm. So to treat toenail fungus, it would drill through the toenail and it would have this feedback loop built in that would stop the toenail or stop the drill before it started causing a lot of pain. And so what they would do is they would drill an array of holes and then they would fill the toenail full of antifungal medicine and make it instead of taking a pill. Then they expanded that same technology to create a cranial drill. And so the cranial drill will drill into the skull and then it will stop before it creates a plunge injury. So that was a really fun one. We've worked on a lot of different catheters as far as urology catheters, a lot of coronary catheters with ultrasound arrays in them. One of the other things, I'm trying to think of some of the other ones, even to robotics and equipment. I mean, we have a product line that we make for a company that we designed and developed here that's for biotech. It creates immunoassay material from animal blood. So we've been making those for a number of years, and it's kind of an interesting, wide spectrum of different things.
Right. So you work with a variety of companies from the sort of the individual entrepreneur all the way up to a larger company that might be developing new products or expanding their product line. Part of the reason that companies come to you is that you have a pretty robust engineering, and planning process. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's interesting because that's, like I was about to say before, I forgot, is that, we are never the subject matter expert. The customer always knows what's going on, but what we do is we do bring a process.
Mhm.
Most companies, especially startups or physician inventors, or even larger companies, don't understand what it takes to all the steps that they have to do to put the product on the market. So we've developed this with consultation from our regulatory group, from our quality group, from our engineering group, and we've developed our what we call an engineering plan, and that covers all of the steps that happen from the beginning to the end on what it takes to bring a product to market. And it's flexible enough that we can do it for a wide variety of different products, and we can also come in or out depending on the phase. Because some
Mhm.
companies are looking for, hey, we just need to reclassify this, we need to retest for this particular indication for use, or other people where we just need to focus in the beginning, and then there's the, hey, we have a clinical trial, our design's done, we just need you to make 500 units of this so we can go to trial. So it's been pretty helpful. It's not perfect, but it's one of the things I think that when you meet a lot of these young, especially smaller companies, do not fully understand the depth and complexity of what has to happen. We've met plenty of physicians that will tell you, "Oh yeah, the design's done." Like, great, can we review it? It's up here, and I'm always like, "That's fabulous. The FDA is going to love that."
So let's dig into that point for a moment. Let's be explicit. What is the problem with carrying around your plan in your head?
Nothing if you want to keep it secret. The issue really only arises if you want to have somebody else help you make it, and it's really
Mhm.
only an issue if you want to submit it for regulatory approval. You can't go to market, whether it's in Europe. I spent a lot of time working in Europe, a lot of time working in the United States. You can't go to market with, if you go into the FDA, let's see what you have, because they want to make sure that it's safe and effective. They want to see that you've
Mhm.
tested things. They want to see that you're monitoring the right things. And if you walk in and go, yeah, it's all up here. Don't worry, I make it the same every time. That it's not going to fly. There's no way.
I just want to be sort of the contrarian here, but that feels like a super obvious thing. But I imagine that you're talking about that because it's often not as obvious as you would want it to be.
Is never as obvious as what you would think. And the problem is that I'm not trying to belittle the people that have these brilliant ideas, because oftentimes it's a wonderful idea, but
Right.
it's a regulatory hurdle that's been put in front of us. Because I mean, if we have a bad day and a product goes poorly, someone is going to be injured. Hopefully not severely, but it's possible. Um, so it does take a little bit of education to kind of convince them, like, all right, so you don't want to have to do that. If we sell this company, you're going to have to
Mhm.
pass this information along to someone else. So it's more about record keeping and building value and looking for the next step, the larger volumes, the other manufacturers, that kind of thing.
Right. That makes sense. So, what do you think? Maybe focusing on startups for a moment, because I imagine that larger companies probably have a little bit more of a process in
They do.
place to some extent. Looking at maybe a startup or a solo entrepreneur, what do you think are some of the key things that they often miss? They just don't get on their radar.
It's the level of detail that has to go into the design, the level of documentation, inspections, and that type of thing. They
Hmm.
just don't fully understand the implications of what they're trying to do. Whether it's, did I get this test up? Compatibility, shelf life, package testing. There's all these things that we've accounted for that most of the time they just don't get. We're working with a startup now. It's a physician inventor, and he's a very reasonable guy. And he was looking at us. He's like, I want to make a change, and we're like, okay, that's going to take a little bit more money and a little bit more time. It's generally acceptable. And then he came back to me and he's like, I just want to talk to you about this. He goes, I was looking at the budget and how much budget we've spent, and we should have plenty of money left over to
Hmm.
work in this design change. And I was like, well, let's go through our engineering plan. Let me explain to you this test, this test, this test. It's all accounted for as far as cost. And I go, and he goes, oh, wow. Well, that goes my there that is why you're asking for my money, because I was like, it's just there's things that they don't understand. I mean, we've done this numerous times,
Hmm.
so we understand what's going on and can anticipate what the FDA wants. We can anticipate what all the changes would be.
Did they miss anything in their engineering? Because our focus is on the engineering planning part of this.
I mean, there is a funny story for that. Is that they had us do some initial work about 6 years ago, and
Hmm.
we had just implemented our system, and they said, all right, here's some work. We have to go to an animal, preclinical study. We'll call it. I don't want to say animal. We're gonna have to go to a preclinical study. Then we need to get these prototypes produced. And this was kind of interesting because here we are, we're at the study, and it's not too far from here. And I looked down and they're like, yeah, we need to do this, this, and this. I was like, okay, hold on. I'm going to run back to my office. We're going to make something really quickly, and we're going to come
Mhm.
back and use it in the preclinical study. And this is kind of a little bit of odd thing is that they decided at that point that they were going to deviate away from our system and go to another company that was slightly bigger at the time.
Mhm.
And then they came back, and now we were doing a ton of work with them because our system has matured over the past 6 or 7 years, obviously, like anything would. Um, the other company did horrible work for them, and we came back as a much trusted resource. And so now they brought us our biggest thing. They're like, this is the pivotal moment for this company. You have to do this design and take it to market. One of the things that we do is we focus on the process.
Mhm.
And that's where our development plan came from. The company that we work with, company, inventor, whoever it is, will hands down be the subject matter expert of what they're trying to do, of that technology, of that procedure, the disease state, whatever it may be. But they don't fully encompass all of the tasks that has to happen because it's outside of their expertise. Whereas what we can provide, and we do this all the time, is that we provide kind of reminders and building blocks in our engineering plan. Like, don't forget, we have to test this. Oh, great. Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to go towards regulatory approval and get there and they'd be like, hey, where's this test? Or did you consider this? Did you consider that? And what we're trying to do is we're trying to get through faster by not forgetting things and making sure we include all of the steps. And oftentimes you're like, oh, we've heard about that. And some of the companies are more sophisticated than others, but oftentimes, especially with the startups, they are looking specifically at that one product as like their next best thing. They haven't done this millions of times. So
Mhm.
that's one of the things is we bring structure and like a checklist of things that should happen. And in some cases, you look at our checklist, you're like, I don't need to do that. I don't need to do that. And when we look, we decide, we talk about it. Okay, we have the provisions not to put that, but we've addressed it. And so there's nothing left behind. There's no missing bits.
Also, from what I've seen as well, is sometimes, up front without mm, a lot of experience and careful consideration, I think there's a sense of just moving really quickly. Let's move fast and break things, um, in an effort to accelerate the process. But what you're saying is by taking a step back and kind of systematically going through all of the possible places that might need to be looked at and removing those rather than just not being aware that they exist at all. It does actually help you get to market faster
It will
because
help.
you don't run into those surprises later on in the process.
Yeah, one of the things, because of, we've been obviously been at this for a long time, but one of the things that we have spent a lot of time doing, which is kind of, it's not a fun task. It's called DHF remediation, design history file remediation, where
Mhm.
we never fake data, but we'll find out later that they should have done this or should have done that in their effort to get to market faster. And as long as you have that data with, we'll call it current correct dates and things like that, the FDA or the notified body will be happy.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the forensic side of things. It's just much better and faster and cheaper to remember it to begin with instead
Mhm.
of trying to backfill it in. Now the FDA is involved, they're upset, you have so much time, letters, recalls, like none of that stuff. We don't want to do any of that.
Right. So you just in getting ahead of it, rather than maybe crossing your fingers and we'll deal with that when we get to it, sort of thing. That mentality, I've seen that a bit, and we try to avoid that where we can.
Yeah, and just making them aware. And they can choose not to do things. They could say,
Mhm.
I don't think we need to do biocompatibility. That's a discussion. But then it was discussed.
Right. So that's maybe on the smaller business side, the startup side. Talk a little bit more about a more established company and how maybe where they struggle a little bit with the sort of this engineering process and how you help them there.
Yeah, there's multiple aspects to that, but most of the time it's resource constraints. Um, we've had customers get notified by the FDA that they require some additional testing. Testing wasn't completed, and now that they're on the notice for they have 60 days to complete the testing. Okay, well we at one point can direct, let's say, 15 engineers to start
Hmm.
running some tests, solving the problems. that they couldn't normally handle without the extra influx of help. We've had this on numerous occasions with customers where they'll be in the building, our people in the building, and then they're just one big happy team moving
Hmm.
forward, trying to get things done. In larger companies, innovation tends to be more difficult because
Hmm.
it's there's not constraints, but I call it corporate inertia, where it's just harder to move a bigger boat to line up than it would be a smaller boat, a little bit more versatile, more steerable, that type of thing. So we can add that and bring that to the table, whereas we're not constrained by you have to have 15 signatures. We have the same thing, certified, audited, everything, but it's just much faster.
Talk a little bit more about your approach. When we spoke about it last, it's really a phased approach. It helps you maintain speed while staying compliant. Like what's maybe special about what you're doing?
We try to account for all of the things that have to happen, which is good. So, like I said before, not to sound like a broken record, but nothing's left behind, nothing's forgotten. And we have design reviews at the end of each phase and reviews. So, in a checklist, all these things need to happen for us to move forward at this point. It keeps us accountable, keeps the customer accountable, and makes sure that when you're at the end product is going to be as complete as it possibly ever could. But then we also have the ability to add resources that don't need to be, like, if you're working for a small company and you've got a complex thing, you end up with 3 engineers, whereas we could end up with some of this engineer's time, some of this engineer's time, and some of that engineer's time. But they're not sitting around waiting for you to give them more work. We could have them put them on some other project until they're needed, and then we pull them back in. So that also helps with the speed.
If I'm trying to build my own engineering plan, um, do you have recommendations to me on how I can help design or build my process so that it strikes a good balance of remaining compliant, but also moving as reasonably quickly as we would want to?
Yeah, I mean, I'd never try and talk you out of making your own plan. There's a lot to it. I think there's probably 600 or 800 lines of items that need to be done, and some of those could take a minute, some of them could take a month.
Hmm.
But just being complete. So there's a lot of research. The FDA has a lot of good guidance on what to do, but you're going to have to read it, understand it. There's some decent books out there. Biodesign is one it's popular. I actually used to use that in one of the classes. Actually, I still use it in one of the classes I teach,
Hmm.
to kind of give people the framework and then build from that. But it really comes with experience and understanding what is required.
What class do you teach?
I teach a bunch.
Okay.
So I am an adjunct professor at UMass Lowell.
Okay.
I currently only teach in biomedical engineering. I teach medical device design too, and computer aided design for medical devices. But previously, I've taught new product development strategy through the business department through the MBA program, and
Hmm.
then used to teach in mechanical engineering technology, used to teach a drafting class. Um, but I've been doing it this January, be 28 years.
I think it's really interesting. Who typically, like, at what level are you teaching? Are these kids still coming out? Are these grown-ups with a lot of experience? Is it a variety? What are you
It's
seeing in
both.
that in those classes?
The business school tended to be, and the engineering technology, which I probably gave up 4 or 5 years ago, um, tend to be slightly older experience trying to get to the next level.
Hmm.
Um, the biomedical engineering students are the ones that I work with now, and a lot of them have focused on trying to do medical device design as a concentration to their studies. Uh, and for me, it's a fascinating thing because I have an opportunity to have 2 14-week sessions with these students.
Hmm.
And typically, if we're looking for people, we start them off as their seniors, juniors, or seniors in college as technicians to come in, and it's an audition to the big show. So I think at this point, we probably have 3/4 of our engineering staff is from that school that has come through an internship program. Through there's a Mass Life Sciences Center local in Massachusetts that we partner with for making that happen.
That's great. That's
It's
awesome.
the best interview process. Let me tell you that the caliber of staff members we get out of that is
Hmm.
bar none, because it's, you talk to somebody for an hour, you don't know. You talk to somebody for 14 weeks every week. Sometimes they're having a good week. Sometimes they're having a bad week. You start to understand, well, you have a lot more good weeks than bad weeks.
Yeah, you get to really know the people.
Yeah.
Very nice. Okay, so back to looking at developing an engineering plan, we're advising kind of, smaller startups, entrepreneurs on, what the process looks like. What recommendations would you make to them, or advice would you give them, to see this process as the mechanism for success, as opposed to a necessary
I was going to
evil?
say a burden.
Or what was that?
A burden.
Yes, exactly. Like, this is the thing that gets you, to the end, as opposed to, a roadblock.
It's a great question. The challenge with that is it does take a lot of education. I mean, a lot of what we do is educate. And sometimes if they
Mm-hmm.
do come in, they see it as a burden or as a roadblock or something where they just want to move faster. It's on my staff's responsibility to educate them on why. And what if they skip that? What are the implications? If they don't do a complete job, what are the implications? And it really doesn't take too long in most
Mm-hmm.
cases. And it's also a good indicator as you're starting to discuss a project with a customer. I mean, we don't take every project. And if they can't
Mm-hmm.
be, I'm not trying to say brought around or anything, but if they can't be enlightened,
Coached.
yeah,
Coached.
coached to the point where they're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, yeah, we need to do that. I understand. And then they're not going to know
Mm-hmm.
everything, but then they will be like, okay, well, I have to trust your expertise with this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically, unfortunately, part of the sales process is you have to kind of talk to them. Um, we always have a technical person in the room for every initial meeting just to make sure that things are going to, that they understand what's going on, that what the implications are, and things like that. And we're not trying to make it slower. We'll actually make it faster, but you just have to understand that we know what we're doing.
Right. What do you think has been the hardest one, convert? Maybe someone who really, really felt like they didn't have to do all of the work, but you won them over.
I was going to say there's some we haven't won over. I'll quickly tell you that because it's been kind of funny. We talked to this one physician inventor. I won't say what he was working on, um, but he's like, "I've got this. It's done." And we're like, "Okay, this is what we need to do in order to put it on the market and produce it." Oh, well, I don't need to do that. Okay. And so then he went away for 2 years and he came back
Mm-hmm.
and he said, "I've talked to 8 different people and they've all given me your name and number." He's like, "I already had your name and number." And I was like, "Okay, what does that tell you?" Well, we should talk. And we're still, that's still in the process. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it does happen quite a bit, especially people that are real research based. They
Mm-hmm.
won't see a lot of the value in the documentation. And they're like, "I can make that." I'm like, "Yes, you can make that. But we have to teach other people how to make that so that you don't have to make that." I'm trying to, there's been a lot. Um, some we never convert. We try really hard,
Mm-hmm.
and those projects tend to take longer and just become more arduous because it's not necessarily it's just harder to get it moving and to finish up all the things we need to do. There's one doctor I've worked with for years on and off, and he always tells me that, "Oh, you don't have to do that, you don't have to do that," and then I'm the first one to say, "Yeah, you do." um, I started off consulting to him. This goes back a long ways in my previous past. He then hired me as a VP for his company, and I continued to argue with him. The only one in the company would argue with him about cutting corners for 6 years. And
Mm-hmm.
then immediately hired me for his next company as a consultant, and we spearheaded most of his initial design on multiple different products, both disposables and durable goods like electronics based.
Mm-hmm.
And I, I will probably get a text message from him this weekend asking a question. So he kind of has come around. That's probably one of the biggest ones. And this is a relationship going on. It's been 15 to 18 years.
Yeah. I think some of the thinking we have as entrepreneurs is we see something and it just seems really obvious and easy to us. And that sometimes that can overshadow the reality of bringing a device to market, especially in a system that sometimes we assume that because we're part of the system, it would just be really easy for us to bring it into the market. But the system's really designed to keep us out. It's designed to, and people don't think about it that way, but it's designed to protect people. And the way that you do that is you default almost to no. and you have to get through the barriers, and that's where we feel bogged down, is with all of the resistance of that.
So, yeah, and so my job is to not show you that it's bogged down, that there are things that you have to do, and to show you the quickest and most efficient way to get past them. Because
Mm-hmm.
the thing with a lot of these, like it was a little bit easier in Europe before the regulations changed, where you could call and be like, hey, this is what we're trying to do to the notified body. We're trying to get this through. What do you want to see? I'd like to see X, Y, and Z. And so with
Mm-hmm.
the FDA has come a long way, but originally you'd go in and you'd be like, I want to do this. And they'd be like, no, we want you to do this. But now they're becoming more collaborative, especially with next February coming. We'll see how that goes, where they combine the two systems. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it is a negotiation to make sure everybody's boxes are checked, things are tested. I mean, we have gone and changed indications for use to make it a little bit more acceptable. You still want to be able to control the market. You still want your product to be able to use for the disease state that you want, but you sometimes have to change the way that you get there right off and then adapt to it.
Talk about that a little more. Can you dig into that? Or do you have a story that you could share with us?
I have a story from Europe. It's
Okay.
probably a few years old.
Hmm.
So we're working
That's
in
okay.
a coronary project. This was back before it was MDG, medical device guidelines, before it became the regulations, before the big regulation change. And we were working with the notified body, and we happened to be working with the head of this giant regulatory association.
Hmm.
And we had a class 3 product. It was a coronary device, and we're collaborating with him. Like, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And so when it came out, a dossier is probably 2, 3 phone books thick. It is a significant undertaking to get a full design history file documented in enough detail for him to be happy.
Hmm.
From the time for submission to the time that we got market clearance was 2 weeks for a class
Wow.
3 product, because we had spoken to the notified body the entire way through, and he looked at it, and he did this. He put his hand up on the stack of paper, which is like this. He goes, "Is this everything I want to see?" Yes. All the tests pass? Yes. He goes, "Okay, give me 2 weeks." And then he went and came back and said, "Hey, I really appreciate what you did. You've made my job much easier." He goes, "Can I use your documentation package, your design history file, as an example to other companies for what I want to see?" And
Wow.
we're like, "Sure. Please don't show the actual test details, but you can show the layout, you can show the format, you can do." He's like, "This would be great, so that I can tell people, if they want to get their products to market faster, follow this plan, and just
Hmm.
put the pieces together, and I am a happy man." It was fun.
So capturing the documentation as you go, I think would be a key part of success. So even if you're, alone or early stage, just making sure you're documenting everything as you go, even if it's before bringing you in, right?
Yep, yep, and we'll want to review that. But the challenge here, and this is where it takes experience, you don't want to over document in the beginning. You don't want to under document
Hmm.
in the beginning. Over document, it's going to take you too long. Under document, we're going to go back and we're going to have to figure it out and fill in the blanks, which is going to happen anyways. But um, we're happy to talk to people in the beginning and say, like, all right, this is what we're thinking. And we'll talk to people like, here's our plan to put it forward. Here's our engineering plan filled out. And they'll come back like, we're going to take the first phase and do what we can. We'll talk to you in 6 months. We'll bring back what we have, and we'll make sure that we have what you need. Sure.
Hmm.
Not a problem. Happy to work with you.
Do you think there is a bit of guidance that you could provide somebody just starting out? Maybe they're too early for you, and you could give them just a quick suggestion on a rough ballpark of what the right level is for them?
Yeah, we do try to do that. Oftentimes, like, one of our first steps when we speak to a company is, well, they come through, do they have a project? Yes. Um, and unfortunately, due to the startup nature of a lot of the things we do, they're pre-funding, but
Hmm.
they don't know what to ask for funding and what they need to do without talking to us first. They just have a technology concept down, but it's not even a fully fleshed out product. So we
Hmm.
will work with them in the beginning and then pair off things. You do this, we'll wait, we'll do this later. We even have certain instances where we're working with a surgeon. He's like, I will run all the animal labs. I will make sure that I will do the surgeries myself. Fantastic. It's all, we build a team with them as an integral part to it.
Okay. And you basically assemble the rest of the players
Yep.
to get this thing going. Okay, that makes perfect sense. And I'm gonna ask it again though. I would want to try to be a little bit prescriptive, and maybe we can put up some rails here for you. I'm speaking to that listener who is they're still early and they feel like they're not quite ready for you. Let's say they're maybe 6 months or a year out from working with you guys. What level of documentation would you like to see with an ideal client moving forward?
And I'll say that's a tough question to answer. We have come and worked with customers with literally napkin sketches. It needs to look like this somehow, to people that have working prototypes, that they have early test data or benchtop data. For us, we can work with either. Obviously, there's more front end work if we're getting a napkin sketch. I mean, we've had several companies show up with a patent. I got a patent. Can you make this? Yes. It's going to take a minute.
Right. I imagine I don't have a patent yet, but I'm beyond thumbnail sketch. I can think of a client of mine who was literally building things in his garage, and he's past that. Well, past that now, but that's where he was at his own, prototype. He was talking to an IP attorney, but he wasn't there yet. He was well past that thumbnail sketch, so he was pretty far along, and he's probably within striking distance of coming your way. Do you think there are any specific things that he should have ready for you when he shows up?
It's funny because we get this question all the time. What do you want to see? And the easiest answer is everything. But that doesn't help. It's not it's not a helpful way to explain it. But we would want to sit down. We'd want to see the prototype. We want to review it. If there's any notebooks that you used, and at that point, it's mostly background information. Shockingly enough, we end up being involved with a lot of IP generation as well. We're not attorneys, but we can take something and really define or refine the claims. We can help look at different embodiments. We can get involved with a lot of that stuff. Working with a patent attorney, help them work on their patent strategy. We should have rolling provisionals. We should do this. We should do that. And it's just a lot of things that they may not have thought of. But we're fully capable and get both of those things. And we get this. It's practically done. I just need to make one change. To here's the very beginning. I'm just have an idea. We prefer the front, like the fun stuff in the beginning.
Right. The ideation.
Oh, that's the best part.
Prototyping. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we'll do all stages, but I mean, in the beginning, the company was formed for the first probably 5 or 6 years just on the front end work, just on the early R&D stages, because it was before we got our ISO certification and we weren't making human grade devices. And then we've added talent to the team in order to bring the manufacturing side of things up. And when I say we do manufacturing, our goal is to launch early product, get you through your clinicals if needed, and then help you scale. And then we will stay on as a approved supplier while you go to the big Flextronics and the big dogs of the world that aren't as efficient in the hundreds and thousands. They're more efficient in the tens of thousands and millions of parts.
If you had one piece of advice for somebody just starting out, they were just hit by this idea, and they were just ready to go, and they're going to go out to their shop or they're going to go do whatever it is they do to get it going, what would that piece of advice be?
Find a mentor. Find someone that knows you or would like to know you, that's intrigued by what you're doing and can share their experiences with you while you're going through it, because they will live vicariously through you with inventing cool things, and then you will be able to absorb information, background, and strategy from them. My mentor that has counseled me never to work for another big company again was the assistant dean of engineering when I was an undergrad student decades ago, and I still talk to him.
Wow. Tim, thank you so much. You've been great.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
If you haven't already, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you want to learn more about this topic, I expand on it below, as well as in my LinkedIn newsletter. That's all for now. More soon.